What's up everybody, I'm HoopsandHipHop. So obviously in the Pokemon franchise, the Pokemon themselves tend to take the spotlight. With over 800 different creatures to choose from that you can add to your team, it makes a lot of sense that they would get most of the attention. But obviously when it comes to Pokemon, there are a lot of human characters too that are very important to each story of each game. For instance, you have the professor characters who actually give you your very first Pokemon, you have the gym leaders who you actually have to beat in order to progress through the game, and of course you have you, the player character. So with all of these very interesting human characters in the Pokemon games, they are almost, if not just as interesting as the Pokemon themselves. And with all of the main series Pokemon games that we have seen over the years, there have been a lot of human characters introduced into Pokemon. And today we are going to be highlighting 10 of them in particular that you probably have forgotten about or might have not even heard about in the first place. Now I mentioned main series because we're only going to be looking at characters from the main series games, and in particular I took special care to only look at characters that had some type of significant role or quirk to them, because obviously there's literally hundreds of NPCs within the world of Pokemon, and obviously there's tons that you don't really pay attention to and are easily forgettable or unnoticeable. So I'm only going to be mentioning ones that have a specific role, a very interesting trait, or are just quirky in general, but are still very easy to forget or very easy to not notice at all. So with all of that being said, here are 10 random Pokemon characters that you probably have never heard of or completely forgot about. Now the first character we're going to be talking about on this list is Celyo. Anyone heard of him? Anyone remember him? Yes, no, maybe? Well, either way, Celyo is one of the administrators for the Pokemon PC storage system, which normally would make him a pretty significant character, but the reason why he is on this list of forgotten Pokemon characters is because he runs the storage system for the Sevii Islands. And of course the Sevii Islands are kind of in that weird in-between area where they're big enough to give themselves their own name, but not quite big enough to be their own region, and therefore are still considered part of Kanto. And the Sevii Islands being a part of Kanto is what makes Celyo as a PC storage system administrator so easily forgettable, because of course we already have a PC storage system administrator in the form of Bill for the Kanto region, and he's the guy who created the whole thing. As you probably know, there is a PC storage system administrator in almost every single region of the Pokemon world that basically kind of takes care of the PC storage system for that specific region, and this is exactly why Celyo is so easily forgettable, because of course we already have Bill. When you think about this specific group of characters, you're pretty much just going to go down the list of all of the regions, and when you look at the Kanto region, you're going to think Bill and then basically cross Kanto off of the list and move on from there. You don't really consider the fact that the Sevii Islands also have their own distinct administrator for the PC storage system, which unfortunately for Celyo makes him one of the most forgettable Pokemon characters of all time in my own opinion. Speaking of Kanto, when you think about Team Rocket, you're pretty much just going to assume that you're dealing with a cast of incredibly memorable and iconic characters. Because of course at the top you've got Giovanni, and then you have other classic characters like Jesse James, and even some of the in-game admins like Archer and Ariana. However, there is one character that is associated with Team Rocket that almost no one ever talks about, and that would be the scientist named Gideon. Now, Gideon isn't technically a member of Team Rocket, and instead is more like a contract worker for them, but he is in the games very heavily associated with them, and he, much like Celyo, makes his appearance in the Sevii Islands, which is a large contributing factor into why he is so forgettable. Granted, he does appear within the Sevii Islands part of the story of Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green, so if you have played those games all the way through, you would have ran into him and therefore know about him, but unless you've played those games really recently, it's not very likely at all that you are going to remember this very brief character within Team Rocket's history. You run into Gideon because he is trying to steal the sapphire that resides on the Sevii Islands in order to sell it to Team Rocket for a big profit. And throughout the course of the story of the Sevii Islands, you also get the chance to battle him as well. Now, the reason why I brought him up on this list, despite being a somewhat minor character, is that not only does he have his own unique name, which makes him more than just an NPC character, but he is also associated with Team Rocket, and he is involved within the main story of a game, so it makes him a very significant character as far as minor characters go. It's just that, unfortunately for him, this is the only time he ever makes an appearance in the series, and like I said earlier, unless you have played all the way through Fire Red and Leaf Green pretty recently, it's likely that you have forgotten about this character altogether. Now, when you hear the name Ingo, what comes to your mind exactly? Well, if you are a Nintendo fan, more specifically a Zelda fan, you probably think of Ingo from The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. But there's actually a character in Pokémon, believe it or not, that is named Ingo, and that would be the subway boss Ingo, and he also has a brother as well named Emmett. These two guys, of course, as their title would suggest, run the battle subway in Pokemon Black, White, Black 2, and White 2, but this is the only area where they appear in the game. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I did not even touch the battle subway, so I didn't even know these guys existed at all till, frankly, I started to do research for this video. Now, the thing that really drew me to these characters in terms of including them on this list is that even though they are very minor characters who you can go the whole entirety of the game without speaking to, seeing, or even knowing about their existence at all, they received custom Ken Sugimori artwork. And this usually only happens to more significant characters, so the fact that these two guys got official Sugimori artwork, despite the fact that you can go the whole game without even knowing about them, was rather interesting in my own opinion. Now, if you're someone who enjoys the more competitive side of Pokemon, there is a decent chance that you've ran into these two guys, as the Battle Subway definitely caters more so to the competitive demographic. However, if you're someone like me who just wants to play through the main story, or even if you're in it for the shiny hunting, you are very, very easily going to miss these two characters, and that's why I decided to include them on this list. Now, when it comes to the most iconic Pokemon characters of all time, I think we would all be in agreement that that title belongs to Ash Ketchum. However, did you know that there's actually a character within the games that has a very similar name to Ash Ketchum? That is actually the case because in Pokemon Platinum there is a character that is known as Ketch Appy, and Ketch Appy is actually a child prodigy television star that stars in her very own program that is aired on Jubilife TV. Ketch Appy's television program can be viewed on TVs all throughout the Sinnoh region, and in the TV show she's actually a detective who uses the Pokétch to solve crimes. However, she isn't really that great of a detective because most of her efforts actually get disrupted by the fact that she forgets how to use the Pokétch. All in all, this TV show actually serves as a tutorial of sorts for the Pokétch and doesn't really play a role in the story, but I just thought considering that she had once again her own unique name and it sounded kind of similar to Ash Ketchum, made her worthy enough to include on this forgettable list of characters in Pokemon. Now, this next one is one of the more well-known characters on this list, but you might have not known that he has an actual name. And I'm actually talking about the Pokemon trainer that you battle in the trainer house in Viridian City in Pokemon Gold and Silver and Heart Gold and Soul Silver. This guy is rather interesting because when you battle him in Pokemon Gold and Silver in the trainer house, he actually looks just like you and even uses your very own trainer sprite when you enter into a battle with him as well. This guy's name would be Cal, and Cal is a rather interesting character because not only does he look exactly like you, like I just mentioned, but he also only appears if you have never used the mystery gift feature before in the original Gold and Silver games, because if you have used the mystery gift feature before, he will actually be replaced with the last person who you use the mystery gift with. Unfortunately for Cal, however, he was kind of downgraded in the memorable department in Heart Gold and Soul Silver because in those games his identical player character sprite was actually replaced with a generic Ace Trainer sprite. And given that that sprite is really the only reason why I could recall him at all personally in the first place, definitely makes him one of the least memorable and least recognizable Pokemon characters of all time. Now, I know all of you guys know who Nurse Joy is, but did you guys actually know that there is a Nurse Joy within the games who not only has a first name, but also does more than just heal your Pokemon at the Pokemon Center? In Pokemon Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, there is a Nurse Joy named Casey who actually participates in the Master Rank Super Pokemon contests, and she uses a Chansey who she nicknamed Pinky. Now, this next one is one of the more well-known picks on this list, but it's a character that can still be very easily forgotten about or missed altogether in the game that she appears in. In Pokemon Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, there is a character known as Mira who appears in Wayward Cave. Mira is one of the number of trainers who actually appear in Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum who you have to help get from one location to the next, and who will also appear in double battles with you along the way. Now, while there are some trainers amongst this specific group of characters who are memorable, such as Cheryl or even Riley, Mira is definitely the least memorable amongst them all, because not only does she not have some type of extra quirk or a bit of significance like Cheryl does, being the first one of these characters that you encounter, and she also appears in Pokemon Generations, and then of course we all know that Riley is one of the principal characters in the Lucario and Mystery of Mew movie. Mira doesn't have anything like that going for her, and not only that, she appears in Wayward Cave, which is a place that you can completely skip over in Pokemon Diamond and Pearl if you so choose. So basically, due to the fact that she doesn't have anything about her character that makes her stand out, and as far as her appearance goes, it's completely optional, it definitely makes her amongst the more forgettable and less memorable characters of all time. A more recent forgettable character made his debut in Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, and that would be the Pokemon Coordinator Chaz. Chaz is a character who is basically like a pompous jerk type of guy who participates in Pokemon contests and acts as a rival to Lissia. Lissia is also a character who was introduced in Oraz, but she is much more memorable as she is required to be seen in the plot, even if just briefly in order to introduce the contests. Chaz, however, is completely optional once again, as you will only ever see him if you participate in the contest, and you have to get to the super rank in order to even be able to see him at all. When it comes to Pokemon contests, you either love them or you hate them, and even though I know everyone doesn't hate Pokemon contests with a fiery passion, I do know that there's a good chunk of people that don't really bother with spending their time on them. And not only that, they definitely don't spend their time getting all the way up to the super rank in order to be able to see Chaz in the first place. So while I don't doubt that there are some people out there who enjoy contests and therefore most likely have seen Chaz, I definitely know that there are a good number of people who have never seen this guy in the games at all for the simple fact that they just don't do contests. And that definitely makes him one of the lesser memorable Pokemon human characters of all time. This next character is a rather classic one because not only does he appear in Pokemon Gold, Silver, Crystal, as well as their remakes, he also appears in Pokemon Stadium 2, and you probably know him better from Pokemon Stadium 2 than you do from the main games, in fact, because this guy would be none other than Earl Dervish. Earl Dervish is the teacher of the Pokemon Academy in Pokemon Stadium 2, as well as the Pokemon Trainer School in Violet City in Gold, Silver, Crystal, and their remakes. The reason why I bring this guy up is because he is kind of iconic and classic in Pokemon Stadium 2, even though I said I was only talking about main series, but since he appears in the main series as well, that kind of qualifies him for this list, and I also thought it was funny that he had a full name. Like, not very many people in the Pokemon world get a first name as well as a last name, and here we have this random school teacher guy getting that special treatment. So I thought that was particularly funny, but even though he does have a full name, it doesn't really help him be memorable, and he definitely is not going to be amongst the most talked about characters in Pokemon anytime soon. And last but not least, we have another character with a distinct name who plays a rather small role. In Pokemon Black, White, Black 2, and White 2, you can find a character named Loblolly in Nacrene City, and she actually is associated with the Dream World. This, along with her name, is what makes her significant, and she can actually give you various pieces of decor for the Dream World when you sync up your game to the service. However, now that the Dream World is defunct, and it's very easy to go through the game without even interacting with it anyway, and it's very easy to not even go into Loblolly's house and speak to her in the first place, just kind of makes her, despite her somewhat unique name and role, very forgettable and very easily missable as well. And there we have it, everybody. Those were 10 Pokemon characters you totally forgot about or maybe even never heard of. Now, you guys probably know by now that I love looking in every single nook and cranny of the Pokemon universe that I can find in order to find all of the coolest facts, secrets, pieces of trivia, and so on, and that definitely extends to the human characters as well, because as I said in the intro, even though most of the attention goes to the Pokemon, the human characters of Pokemon are also immensely interesting, and even the lesser, more forgotten minor characters of the Pokemon world have something interesting to share as well. If you guys enjoyed the video though, be sure to give it a like and let me know down in the comments below how many of these characters you actually knew before this video started, and let me know if you know of any other characters you feel like are very easily forgettable or missable as well. And if you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe for more Pokemon content every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, and if you enjoy Pokemon music and remixes, I would sincerely appreciate you checking me out on Spotify, because any support there goes to directly support the channel here. With all of that being said though, I'll be back with another video on Thursday, so be sure to hit that notification bell so you can be notified as soon as it goes live, and with all of that being said, I love you guys, and I will smell you guys later.